Okay, Grinch, I got a hot take for you.
Oh my God. Ow!
I have
I
a
burned myself.
hot take prediction about 2026.
Let's talk about 2026.
And before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about 2025 here in the United States and
This is a
elsewhere.
water boiling, by the way.
2025 has been kind of an interesting roller coaster of a year between tariffs, between de minimis getting taken away, which we haven't really talked about too much. There's been kind of a lot of things going on here in the United States on the economic home front.
Hello, bricks, chicks, and minifigures. You are listening to AFOLs Welcome, where we talk about all things Lego from the perspective of two adult collectors. We're your co-host. I'm Grinch.
And I'm West.
And today we are reviewing the year 2025 in Lego. It has been a bumpy ride, a wild ride, a creative journey, perhaps. But before we do that, West, how was your week?
Well, Grinch, I spent part of it with you for Thanksgiving, you and your
did?
family. I did. But other than that, it
That's who
went
that
well.
was.
And I did want to add, speaking of Thanksgiving, we had somebody up from our last episode comment because I had said something to the effect of, it's Thanksgiving week here in North America. And, I appreciate the correction, but one of our Canadian viewers on YouTube responded and said, "Hey, buddy, Canada actually celebrates Thanksgiving in October." And I feel like I heard that at some point, but also totally forgot. So my apologies. Appreciate the heads up. Interestingly enough, not only do they absolutely celebrate Thanksgiving in October, their Thanksgiving goes back to like the 1500s. That's what Wikipedia had to say. So well precedes our own Thanksgiving. And so in a rare concession, the Canadians did it first. I don't know what
Classic
I don't know how to think
American
about
West over here trying to just stake his claim on everything. Next, you're going to tell me Mexico celebrates Thanksgiving too, and Central America, and, Guadalajara and Guadalupe, and come on, bro.
that. Well, so yes, that's my brick banter for the week.
Yeah, as you know, I was working on my digital mocks this week, and brought my laptop, which I don't typically have. I typically use my desktop to use Studio, and I was going to show you my Amon Hen mock, and I saved the wrong file. I sent myself the wrong file, so yeah, you couldn't see it, but you got a peek behind the curtain. So that's what I kind of worked on, and I am actually getting ready to move into my new house. So get out of this temp house and back to better internet connection. So the listeners don't know, but the past few weeks, I've been having terrible internet, and so bad that our last episode, West had to pick up my slack. So thank you, West, for riding solo. We typically, whenever we have a guest, we do just a little run through, and I more so for the guests just to make sure they understand how the platform works. We just can test stuff because West and I know our stuff is gonna work, or we can sit it's our time we're wasting if we're trying to troubleshoot. When it's just us, right? We don't want to waste our guest time, so we typically just do a quick 5-minute, just, hey, here's the platform. We'll talk later, sort of thing, and we were having some issues then, and then sure enough, the very next day, my whole internet just was crashed and down all day. And so, Wes, thank you for. I'm sad I missed the episode, but thank you for holding it down because, as you mentioned, the very next day, you and I were heading up to visit each other and our family. So it was record or bust, and You delivered for not only Grinch but the listeners as well. So thank you.
Well, happy to do it.
You know what else I'm happy for, West?
Ooh, some exciting Lego news.
And it is
exciting Lego news.
All right, Wes, why don't you run us through the news this week?
Well, Grinch, for news this week, we're going to start out a little less exciting, and then it'll get very exciting very quickly. So to start, we got some news about some Bricklink store closures that are occurring around the world. Specifically, 35 countries have been identified by the Bricklink marketplace as no longer meeting criteria for sales. And so the sellers in those markets will no longer be able to sell on Bricklink. We'll get into those details in just a bit. But then we got our January 1 reveals, and this was really exciting. We got things like the Lego Icons modular building revealed. We got new Stranger Things sets coming out, including a Brickhead, and then just the rest of the January 1 release wave. So before we get into the kind of fun part of that conversation, Grinch, do you want to explain for the listeners what was going on with this announcement from Bricklink?
Yeah, so they announced that they were closing the Bricklink marketplace in 35 stores. They really didn't give too much of an explanation, and then they actually kind of released a little bit of an apology letter, just saying, hey, we maybe did not announce that the best way. Sorry about that. We were trying to be transparent. It sounds like there was maybe some issues with the user experience, and they kind of just leave it at like during the next couple of years we'll be continuing to make a substantial investment in our IT infrastructure to help strengthen the platform. So I think ultimately this is, I don't want to say a symptom or because of, but maybe even a benefit at the end of the day. Like, this is something that most likely occurred because Lego bought Bricklink, right? And they've had some time with the platform, and they were like, they had maybe identified a reason that they had to do this, right? And maybe it was going on because prior to that, it was just kind of like a fan run, like open source. No, I mean, it's not open source, but you know what I mean? It's just kind of a more casual website, right? And now that you've got a kind of corporation owning it, there's certain standards, certain things that they need to follow, maybe concerns that they have that your everyday person who's just running something out of their basement doesn't necessarily have, right? So that's kind of how I read these tea leaves a little bit, of just like Lego doing their due diligence to make sure that maybe the user experience is better, because I don't really think it's like a profit loss necessarily by like having those countries open it, especially like Brazil, right? Like, you would think, well, it's not the top 5 market. It's probably a fairly large market on population alone.
Yeah, that's a good point you brought up, and one that I would caution. We've seen a lot of backlash about this. I would caution some patience with the larger Lego community. We've seen Bricklink and the website infrastructure slowly get modernized over the last year, as Lego has sort of kind of fully taken control over it. And it sort of felt like they sat on it for a little bit just to sort of see what they had. And now they're starting to make some performance updates and adjustments. And I will say, I mean, Bricklink itself beforehand wasn't a overly clunky website, but it certainly wasn't streamlined. And you're seeing the Lego group start to streamline it a little bit more. And like you said, I wonder if this is a symptom.
Was fairly clunky.
I mean, I was being generous.
I remember when I first told you about this years ago. You're like, "Yeah, can you show me like how to use this website?" I'm like, "Did you?" I'm like, "I guess yeah." I mean, it took me a while to get. That's fair.
Yeah, it wasn't super intuitive. Once you figured it out, it worked for you. But I'm sure this is part of like Lego's continuation of just trying to make that user experience more seamless. That's some speculation on my end. I also wanted to note, of the 35 countries that were selected, there wasn't a lot of rhyme or reason as to why, at least externally, as to what appeared to be some sort of connective issue going on. And my speculation on this is that there might be something more to do with like internet regulation, especially with Lego being a Denmark-based company, right? There's EU internet protocols that affect EU-based websites, and Bricklink, I don't know where, I guess it's ultimately hosted, but it could be subject to something like that. Again, that's complete speculation on my behalf, and so maybe it's just an issue of compatibility, or hey, we need to, much like the Lego Ideas parking lot, like, we need to take some time to get this figured out to work with your country. So in the meantime, we have to pause, and they haven't said they will bring it back necessarily, but I don't know, man. I mean, I'm thinking about if I was a corporation and I knew I needed to pause something to work on it, I also wouldn't promise I'd bring something back necessarily if I didn't know the timeline that I could do that in, right? I'd probably say something to the effect of like, hey, we're working to bring you the best store that we possibly can. But so I don't know. I would just say, I know there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of consternation out there. I would just encourage the larger Lego community to just have some patience and grace. I think the narrative does not match what we know of the Lego group. And so that's one of the reasons why I would encourage a little more patience and grace for the Bricklink team.
As we do a 2025 review, I think it's timely that we also just take a step back during the news here to remember maybe some main kind of bullet points here from Bricklink. I think it was just this time last year, wasn't Bricklink was hacked, right? So maybe that's maybe there's a concern there. Also, just this past quarter, right? And I think it was October, they did the Bricklink Lego.com integration. So I wonder if maybe, timing wise, that kind of adds up, but what we don't know is, a clear and stated reason. So, ultimately, it was done for a reason, right? And it also represents lost sales for Lego. So I don't think it was done lightly at that.
Absolutely. But let's talk about some more exciting things, Grinch. So
yay! Can you tell a 10-year-old or 10-month-old? Yay!
I called out two of the sets that I thought were really exciting to see, but the rest of that January 1 release wave was really cool. Do you want to start with the two sets, Grinch, or do you want to start with the release wave? What do you think? What are you feeling right now?
I want to start with this Friends Garden restaurant, dog. Man, it looks good. I mean, dude, for a pink and a magenta building, like, it looks good.
I
it's got that new fern piece.
So I spoke to that last week, right? And I mentioned your thoughts on the autumn garden, and I said it'd be really cool if we got that fern piece in green, so you could do like that willow tree in like the springtime. And sure enough, all I needed to do was wait a week, and we got the new green fern piece. But you're seeing it used upside down, you're seeing it used right side up. I really like this building. I mean, this thing looks, you could turn it into like a nightclub. Like this screams like, downtown Miami or something, right? But on the inside, if you look at the set, there's some really cool inclusions. They use a funnel piece, a minifigure funnel, like one that you put oil in a car with, upside down with the saucer piece, and it creates something called a tangine, which is used in like Moroccan and North African cooking a lot. And so I think the influence for this building is supposed to be kind of like that North African Mediterranean kind of style.
It definitely has that vibe, yeah.
Think it's so cool. And to see Friends like push the limits. There's some other Friends sets from this wave. There's that house with the skateboard ramp on it that looks really great. The Friends wave is cooking, man. And man, oh man, they did not disappoint.
Now that we unironically started our reveal discussion with Friends, let's take a deep breath, my friend. Yeah, and I mean, dude, that house looks good, and the flesh tone, the peach color, like. Okay. All right, let's get back on track. Um, more Stranger Things brickheads. I was actually going to ask you last week, didn't get to it because I had recently done the Stranger Thing brickhead pack that we got earlier this year,
Mhm, mhm.
and I had noticed on it, and I can't believe we didn't call it out, but I had noticed on it said season 1. And so I was gonna last year be like, do you think we're gonna get
Mm.
more seasons? Like, what is that like? What is that? Is like it's gonna be Sean Astin like a season 2 and like a Demodog and you know
Rip,
maybe
rip.
Steve and then maybe season 3 you get like Robin like how like is that how they're gonna do it sort of thing? And this new brickhead set was just announced as well as the other Stranger Things sets and it says season 5 on it. So um early but late, but also didn't actually say it. So there's that. But I'm sitting here looking at Axolotl Adventure Boat, and this is just fun and awesome from Friends again. But no, what did you want to talk about, sir?
Well, I mean, I will mention the Creel House real quick. It,
Okay.
this week of early December on social media, the Creel House has been all over the place with the Ambassador Network. And I will call out a feature of it that's really interesting, which is if you kind of pull the house apart, the like house will explode into like the upside down version. And then you kind of compress it again. And then it becomes sort of the
Mm-hmm.
right side up version. And I think that's just a really interesting play on what we got from the first Stranger Things set, where it's the buyer's house, but it's literally flipped. Like on one end, you have it obviously, but so I just think it's a really interesting way to sort of subvert that idea. You're still paying homage to it, but you're doing it in a really different way with lots of different movements. The house looks really pretty. I mean, again, we talked about the Haunted Mansion from the Monster Fighter series as being like this really cool Victorian mansion. And here we have the Creel house that's been released, and it's the same thing. What I really love is Steve's BMW, which for some reason gets included in the set, the red car. Not quite a Speed Champions BMW, 1980s BMW, but the closest thing we'll probably get. And I'm more than okay with that. I don't know why Stranger Things has given us some of the coolest cars from the 80s to include that Trailblazer that Hopper drove, a
Mm-hmm.
sheriff's car, and now we get Steve's BMW. So I don't know, man. I'm just tickled every time I see those really cool cars, and I'm loving the series and what they're doing with it.
Yeah, I like the Creel house. I'm gonna get it, but it $300 feels rough. 240 feels a lot better to me. How
Yeah.
much was the McAllister house? Was that
I think that one was
300?
300. I think it
Right?
was a little heftier.
But it was like that felt like a better 300 than this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
I
am
think that's fair.
seeing a lot of, I mean, the minifigure selection's great, right? Sorry, folks. The gift with purchase does come with Winona Ryder and Hopper, which I know has been controversial. But you do get 13 minifigures, so I will say that. But I think the rest of the building, I don't know, just there's something about it that just maybe feels slightly. It doesn't feel as polished as I would expect Lego in 2026 to feel.
Yeah. I think that's the trouble with building in all of those features, though. If they were just to have built a
Yeah,
regular building, they probably could have done a little better. But
I think back to like the Hidden Side haunted elementary school,
mm-hmm.
and I feel like I mean, so this has 2,500 pieces, right? And that elementary school um, had, I think it was $160, right? Um, but I
Yeah, it
think
wasn't that
I don't want to
much.
say like objectively it was better, but like I mean, I like the Hidden Side Elementary School better, especially when you compare prices. It
Yeah. I
was,
mean,
I
that's
mean, shoot, dude, you could go buy the elementary school right now for $150, and they feel like a very similar size. It's funny. I'm like looking at the box art. I'm like, I don't even know what this is. 1,000 less pieces, but I think it was like $120 when it came out, if I recall correctly. So, I mean, I don't know. I just it. I would I feel like I would want something just a little bit more substantial. Maybe it's the trees. Like, it kind of feels like the trees are there to maybe take up some room, but then they're also like skinny mini, like just not like, kind of a poor excuse for a tree. So
the other thing too is the house isn't that deep. There's not a
right,
lot of
right.
depth to it, and so it's really kind of like that Jurassic Park mansion from the second Jurassic
Mm-hmm.
World movie,
The Lockwood Estate.
where
Yeah, I'd much rather
it
have that
looks
than this.
really
That's a great
cool.
comp.
A good facade, but beyond that, not a lot of utility. So
Yeah. What do you think of these baby rides? The Lego City rides.
I don't even know. I don't even know. But I
It's a
wanted
good way to
Grinch.
get more babies in circulation, I guess. These might be good to pick up, like if you can find them on sale at the end of the year, for like half off. Like, I might pick up one or two. They're $10.
I mean, at least they're not at least they're not like 4+ sets. I'll give it that.
Yeah,
There's some credit where credit's due, but not much.
I do enjoy. I do enjoy this wave. Like, I actually might get the recycling truck if it comes on sale. Like, if I can find it on sale somewhere. Like, I like the little Lego van too. Like, that's interesting. There's an airport that's pretty sweet, actually. I don't see the price on the airport though, so I think that, to be honest, I'm gonna open up on Lego.com is gonna be the end all be all for me. It looks like, dude, that is an insane deal. Holy. So this is one where I feel like price apart lies a little bit, but this airport is 887 pieces and it's $99. And I feel like for Lego City, that's really good, actually, especially considering this comes with a plane, which is
Yeah.
going to be that larger canopy piece, right? There's going to be, larger wing pieces. There's that foldable stair piece, side piece that's kind of fits in with the canopy. I mean, these are all very specialized pieces. The
Lots of
airport
big window
itself
pieces.
is fairly large. Yeah, lots of the giant support pieces. So this is actually, if you're a fan of Lego City, this is a good one. It even's got the jet bridge on there that's done pretty well. They didn't. I feel like typically they would have just maybe put that in like a $30 set on the side and been like, oh, it's a jet bridge truck, like the stair truck, right? They actually gave a jet bridge here. So I was there's no price on the article I'm looking at, but like I went to the Lego website, it's $99. That is good for that. That is, I think, way more fair than it
Yeah.
really needs to be. I was honestly expecting 120 as like I'd be okay with, and I was expecting it to be like 140.
I think this is a really strong city wave. And I concur with pretty much everything you mentioned. I wanted to call out the recycling truck is great. I love the new wheel
I'll see if I
pieces.
can get that on sale for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're using the saucer to fill that gap. I don't think that is a standard Speed Champions wheel. So I think that's a new wheel. The tractor is really cool. I mean, this is probably, I have that red one they made a few years ago. This one is just way better. The red one suffered because kind of the nose of that tractor was really thin, but this one it looks like a beefy farm tractor. It's a good tractor. That's all you really need to say about that. The airport's great. The Coast Guard helicopter, this is,
Dude, the Coast Guard stuff is sick.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten Coast Guard stuff in such a long time from Lego. And I feel like, the Coast Guard stuff is something that Lego can do that scratches the itch for like anyone who wants something kind of tangentially related to the military, right? Because in some cases it can be. But at the same time, Lego gets all of that plausible deniability to be like, no, this is civilian search and rescue.
Guys,
Like,
they're rescuing.
absolutely. So I just think it totally makes sense from Lego's perspective where they could kind of dip their toes into that. And they sort of have here, right? We have this beautiful helicopter. The one thing that I'll call out, it drives me nuts with Lego airplanes is just proportions with minifigures are such that you really can't ever get two people side by side unless you have an 8 wide cockpit. And so unless you have the big airplane they did a few years ago, like all of the airplanes are single seat, which is pretty unrealistic. So in this situation, that Coast Guard helicopter does have a new 8 wide windscreen and will be able to seat two minifigures side by side. So I just think that's a really cool inclusion. I just think that's a solid set.
Hey, can I send you your Christmas gift on January 1st? Are you okay with that?
You absolutely can. I love the inflatable life raft. That's so cool.
So
I mean,
I wanted to bring that up. I'm glad you mentioned it because Lego has is this the end of the old life raft? Are they retiring that piece?
I mean, I think they should. This is the way that they've done this. Brick built life raft is great.
It's brick built? Oh,
This new one is.
I'm sorry. I'm talking about the lifesaver, the little floaty.
Oh no, but yes, they do have the new lifesaver.
They have a new floaty, yeah.
I like both of them because I think they both have utility. I do think this one, I mean, with the dual molding that they're using with the orange and the white, looks really, really nice. So
this objectively is better, right? But it doesn't have as much use as the other one, right? You're not gonna be able to use this as a wreath.
It's not gonna be a toilet bowl. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe a bouncy one.
But I did want to call out, this is a sleeper hit. If you look at kind of the one set that stands out as kind of maybe not super inspiring, but the airplane service truck and hovercraft remix set. If you look at the service truck, it has a new printed windshield on it. It's not a new windshield piece. I don't think it's a train windshield. I think it's a print. But it looks like one of the train windshields. That's that 2x6 windshield. I just think it looks so cool. And I'm wondering
that's a
why
new piece.
Either it's a new piece or it's a new print. Either way, I don't know why that wasn't included on every single set. Like any set with that type of window on it, like the garbage truck, the recycling truck, like the snow plow. Like that definitely should have been on both of those sets. So that's kind of my hot take there. But I think that's a really, really cool piece. One that it will be like really awesome to pick up on Bricklink. But yeah,
we'll have to pay attention to New Elementary to see, because I think they oftentimes get those pieces early.
They also do really great profiles, and they did some cool stuff with City. There's a new 2x6 element that's releasing with this new City Wave, and it's in such a way that the bottom is 6 studs on the bottom, but the top is 5 studs. And on the sides, there's a little bracket piece that just juts up, and so the doors can shut on it, but won't swing inwards. So it's a really great piece to use in vehicles because you can use it for like the bench seat of your vehicle and seat 2 minifigures side by side on a 6 wide build and then have room to shut doors and it won't get kind of wonky on you. I just think that's really cool. And I'm so glad Lego's building them. And I think that piece is going to be in a few of these sets for this City Wave. So that's kind of neat to see.
Yeah. All right. The fries truck. I love it. Okay. No, I just wanted to say that real quick. I do really like the fries truck. I like those little food trucks. I've got them all so far, so I'll get that one too. West, the modular.
Grinch. Let's do it. Let's talk about
it. What do you think? Price increase. This is the worst set ever. There's a price increase. But it's still good price support ratio, so
yeah. It's interesting. I don't think it's like I genuinely don't kind of feel like the modulars are ever bad. There was a lot of kind of hate, I'll call it, thrown at like the Jazz Club. Like I actually really enjoyed that modular. It was simpler than some of the last ones, but I didn't mind it. This one is interesting, man. I'm getting some complex reactions, and I'm pulling it up on my phone just so I can look at it as I describe them. But what's your kind of thoughts?
I think it's I really like it. Now, I will caveat I haven't seen it in person, right? Now, obviously there's a price increase, so like, if you want to complain about that, go ahead. Still a good price to part ratio. But it introduces some pretty interesting dynamics to the modular layout. First of all, you'll know this. I am too smooth of a brain to is it the cinnamon roll columns? You know what I'm talking about? What are those called?
Those like
Irotic
the
or something like that. Iotic or whatever column.
oh,
You know what I'm talking
ionic
about?
columns, yeah.
Yeah. Very close to a technique for that used in the Windows here. So I think that
Yeah.
will inspire, some people will duplicate that to make some good columns. And it uses a dumpling piece there in the window as well. Like I love good. Yay. The other thing I like too is it introduces an alleyway, right? In the middle. So it introduces this new dynamic of having this idea of like, there's so much going on behind the modulars sometimes, right? That like you just don't ever really use that. And like this is your way back there now, right? Like it just introduces another level of modular. There's some parts I dislike about it. Like I don't really like the like viney stuff going on the second floor of the white Victorian Flatiron building. But I do really like the fact that it is not just another flat facade, right? I wouldn't hate it if it was another flat facade, but I appreciate the fact that it's different, right? In that regard. The other thing is sand green. It looks like there's a bunch of sand green 1x6s, and for people that like the Green Grocer, there's the sand green 1x2 with the garage rail kind of centerpiece. That's part of the reason that's so expensive. Those are like $4 a piece. So some more are in circulation now. And yeah,
dark orange.
And dark orange, yeah. I think overall, though, it does feel a little bit messy. And I'm curious how tall it is because we may have a new tallest modular. I'm not seeing height anywhere, but yeah, overall I like it. Like if you look, there's a photo on Lego's website of like all the levels taken off but the main floor, and it's got a really interesting floor plan, and I definitely appreciate something off stud, not square, and dynamic.
Yeah. So I concur with a lot of your takes there. I do think it's a little messy.
It is very messy.
Looking at it and I see more, not less. That sometimes the modulars, when they do a little less, I think they kind of stand out. And it's interesting to see another corner building so soon after the boutique hotel.
It's
I mean,
not
that
a
was
corner.
well, not a corner. Sorry, I mean, like you said, like a flat iron, like right, like you have a real triangle building there. And I say that it's interesting because I actually am a little critical of the boutique hotel. That I know what they were trying to do. I really liked it. I just felt like the execution of it, just the way the corner window on the boutique hotel kind of pops out awkwardly, and it's not like a smooth, Flatirons, like that Flatiron building in New York, it's a smooth transition from the triangle to like the rounded end. And I think it would look awkward if it like jutted in and then, looked like the boutique hotel. So I think they got a lot of the spaces covered in this one a lot better. I actually think the kind of turret up the front of it, execution wise, looks a little bit better than the boutique hotel. I think they've cleaned that up really nicely. But yeah, some of that ornamentation just feels a little bit excessive. Those kind of curly Q wrought iron, details on the second floor. I think if you removed them, I think that would kind of clean it up really easily without, you just don't put them on your model, right? Like that's pretty easy things to do that I don't think like ruin the integrity of it. The one thing that I kind of wanted to call out is I'm just not super enthralled by the story on this one, with the burst pipe in between the two buildings in the alleyway, and then in the or the furniture store, there's like discolored wood where the water has like seeped in. Like I don't know. I think that's just almost like too much, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't know if looking at it from the front it tells that story. I remember what Luke said from the Lego Master seasons with Amy and Jamie, and can you see the story from 5 feet away? Can you see it from 5 yards away? Can you see it from across the room? And I don't know if you know that story unless somebody kind of explicitly tells you it's there. And so it just feels like a bit of an odd inclusion. Lastly, the furniture piece and the music piece, we have a music store. It was in Assembly Squared. So I don't know why we're getting another one here. I mean, I feel like if that was a little cafe, people would, have a cow too. But I almost feel like a cafe would make this whole sequence like feel a little better or just cleaner. And then, I mean, I think it's fine. This one, I think, is one where I will maybe not keep the insides of these buildings what they currently, are when I have one myself.
When
Um,
you modify it.
But I will say, I mean, the alleyway is a cool inclusion. It's different. It I think is a unique way to, like you said, open up the back of the buildings and kind of showcase them a little bit more. I think the backs of modulars have always sort of historically been underutilized. And so if there's ways to kind of spruce those up or make them more interesting, I always try to explore that myself. So I think this is kind of cool. The one thing though that I think is sort of a drawback is because of this really interesting geometry, the actual like square footage of this floor space is not huge at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're really kind of suffering there from a square footage perspective. And I mean, I'm, holding up a image of it right now for the viewers, and there's just not a lot of room there on that base plate. Or sorry, not a lot of room is covered up by floor plan there on the base plate. So I I like what I see, but I don't know, man. I knew the Tudor building was going to be hard to top. And I think we're just ultimately seeing that that was the case. Like it, I think they did a valiant effort. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure I have more thoughts, but I need to build it.
Yeah, I think you need to see it in person too, because seeing it a set in person is a very different experience, right? And I will call out that I also have not seen it in person. Um, I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but to me, this feels like a fan design set. Where
I
it
kind of felt like
just
that too.
is Yeah, it's just lacking that like je ne sais quoi like Lego polish, right? And there's a lot I really like. It's like they spent so much time trying to get like it's like let me use 25 different techniques versus just highlighting like one really cool, like a few five
Okay.
like well done ones. But there is a lot I do, like I said, that I really like about it. I do like the interesting floor plan. I like the idea of like that center alleyway. It kind of feels like this is one that you make your modular street, like maybe you got a corner, a section, and then this one, and then a section and a corner, right? It kind of feels like it's a good middle modular of your row.
Yeah. I
But
will also add
yeah.
one thing that I really like in the press release. They showed effectively stacking multiple ones on top of each other again. And that was something they did with the early modulars where they, like the Emporium, they'd show, hey, if you buy 2 of them, you can make it this tall. And if you buy 4 of them, and they would kind of show you like, if you bought 16 of them, you could do, and like nobody would do that, right? Or, a lug could do that. But I think it's cool to see them kind of entertaining, like expanding it and sort of purposefully building in that expandability back into the model that they haven't quite done in recent years. I mean, nothing stops you from buying extra modulars and building new floors. That's not really that complicated or difficult, but it's nice to see them sort of nodding to that again officially. I think that's really neat. Not great for my wallet, but
Real quick, what do you think about the gift with purchase?
I think the hats thing is dumb, but it's making me want to go back and buy the Parisian taxi cab too, because there's some really cool old cars with this series that I think
The
just
car's
are
great.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree. The silly
I
hats.
mean, it reminds me of how bad the cinema limo is, though.
Oh God, yeah, that limo is yeah.
I will say this car though reminds me too of how much I liked that white car from Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost. Oh my gosh, the Last Crusade. Got to it eventually. That also kind of really had the similar sort of era and vibe to it as a lot of the cars from the modular series. That kind of old 30s and 40s kind of style that seems to be pervasive in the modular line. I never really liked that gift with purchase with the surfboard, the one with the surfboard on the side. I wasn't a huge fan of that one, but the rest of them I think are pretty solid.
Well, West, I think that was a pretty solid week of exciting Lego news. Why don't
Yes.
we head over to today's topic?
Let's do it.
Today's topic. All right. So, folks, we are talking about the 2025 year of Lego. And we will be doing our award show in the coming weeks. But today we're really just going to talk about the year as a whole. We're going to talk about the data today, some fun little factoids, and maybe finish off with, kind of what we think 2026 has to come. A little bit of a solid, messy modular, perhaps. Who knows? No, just kidding. But Wes, why don't you just kind of give us some highlights of set data, and then I'll give some highlights from Lego itself for 2025.
Yeah, so it's hard to get some exact reads on some of these numbers. So bear with me and I'll explain why. First off, we're looking at about 918 sets this year in 2025 across 42 different themes. And why I say that's a hard read is we'll talk about when we get into how we aggregated our data, but some things are sets, like CMFs are technically sets, right? But in our data, we exclude them because they kind of skew the numbers in a really weird way. So what this figures from Brick Economy, what they count as a set and what they don't count as a set, I'm not entirely sure. They don't explain themselves, nor do they necessarily need to, as long as they're using consistent rationale. That aside, so yeah, that's a pretty big year from Lego. I believe we crested 1,000, didn't we, in like 2020 or 2021? And then it kind of dipped down, and now it's kind of sprung back up. So a lot of sets this year, and it feels like there's been a lot. Grinch, can you guess the most expensive set this year?
Well, I could take a slice at it, but I don't know if I could.
Well, our categories here for most expensive, highest piece count, and most minifigures are unanimously taken up by set
What?
75419. The UCS Death Star coming in at $999. That is the most expensive Lego set ever, with for general release, with the highest piece count this year at 9,023 pieces, and the most minifigures clocking in at 40. So a very, very big set because it.
There was a Death Star release this year.
I thought it was more like a pie, but
Yeah.
or like a cake,
a death slice,
yeah. A death disc.
death disc. I want to buy some death disc. You don't want to sell me a death disc.
You don't want to do that. That was such an awful moment.
Wes loves the prequels. Anyways, you were going on about the Death Star.
So because the Death Star kind of took up all three spots, I wanted to explore like, well, what was the next one, right? So I didn't necessarily get the next most expensive set, but the next largest set by piece count was the Tropical Aquarium that just recently released at $480. And then the most minifigures behind the UCS Death Star was actually the Bricklink Designer Program Siege Encampment set. That was $230 and sold or included 18 minifigures. So a decent selection there from a Bricklink Designer Program set.
Well, Lego also, aside from the sets, had some other bits and pieces from this year. First of all, in the first half of 2025, Lego broke had record-breaking revenue. It grew by 12 to 13% in sales. In that same period, they released a record number of sets in the first half period. So not in the full year, right? But in the first half of the year period, they released a record number of sets versus any of those other periods. And they grew stores. They've been over 1,000 stores globally, but they opened up another 24 stores. So there's 1,079 total stores throughout the world. And they continued to collaborate with various brands. So we saw a bunch of new brands this year, or ones that, they had slightly dabbled with, but not so formally in the past. So Formula One, Nike, Goonies, which they'd done in the past, but kind of redid with Lego ideas. Gizmo, which is called Gremlins. And then, of course, Marvel and Ghost Rider. No, Star Trek, of course. So
we got another
and I think,
Luke Landspeeder.
Then we got 5 more Luke Landspeeders this year alone. No, but I do think it's funny too, because like just scrolling through Reddit, I've seen a couple of posts on Reddit being like, "Hey, new to Lego, like, is it normal to get extra pieces? Like, what are they building? The Enterprise." So it seems the strategy is going to continue to be do these niche themes, right, and bring more people into the brand through them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, West, why don't you walk us through some of the overall data for this year?
Yeah, happy to, Grinch. So overall data for this year, retail price for the entire 2025 wave, that again, we've kind of normalized just to make the data make sense, is around $37,000. Piece count for this chunk of Lego that's going to run, that $37,000 is going to buy you 356,000 Lego pieces. You're looking at around 1,400 minifigures. Price per part on average is sitting right around 11 cents, and the median is right around 10 cents. And so there's some really interesting takeaways that we'll kind of share with what that looks like here year over year for Lego. And I think there's going to be some surprising insights from that. But Grinch, do you want to kind of talk about what that looks like from the last couple of years?
West. Somebody's gonna like accuse us of like working for Lego over here.
I mean, if they want to hire us,
So, oh yeah, I mean,
I'm
if
down.
Lego, like, give me a call. 7, no, Grinch at AFOLs Welcome.com. Wes, part of the reason we really strive to use data on the podcast is to make sure that we're putting fact with our word, right? Because things can feel a certain way, right? I mean, I remember when I first was an AFOL, I was like, man, Lego is really expensive. And I was like, well, I never really like bought it before. I was kind of just like a kid, like I was saving up my allowance and buying one set. And I was only buying one set because I could only save up my allowance that far, right? I mean, that's how far my allowance got me, right? So like, rather than react to emotion, we're trying to react to logic. So we've always been big stewards and advocates for the use of data. So what we have is we've got a cleaned up list of all the sets this year, right? And we do remove stuff like the collectible minifigures, the Duplo, items that are going to unnecessarily skew the data because nobody looks at a CMF and says, wow, that's a bad price to part ratio, right? I mean, you might look at a CMF and be like, oh, the price increased again or whatever, but you're not looking at that as price per part, right? You're not looking at a luggage tag and are like, man, this is a bad price to part ratio. That's one piece for $10. Like you're just not doing that, right? So we go through the data, we get rid of stuff like the base plates, right? Powered up motors, luggage tags, the gears, the other collectible minifigures, Duplo, right? That's not necessarily system brick, right? So first and foremost, we do that.
When even Duplo, right? Like the price per part ratio for Duplo is insane and really not comparable when you compare that to something like your standard Lego system brick. So I think if you take the data, like we take this data from something like Brickset, for example, and they have a wonderful tool where you can say, I want to see every single Lego set from this year. You can export it into Excel. Like I'm not, giving away trade secrets here. Like it's publicly available data. But what's included is every single thing that Lego sold that year. So if they sold a pad of paper, that actually has a set number. If they sold a pair of chopsticks, that has a set number. If it's like you said, like a keychain, like that has a set number. And so we don't want to include that in our data because it just gets silly and isn't ultimately representational of like what we're trying to see here. And so, yeah, you're right. Like we clean up the data so that we have kind of a consistent measurement year over year of like raw system brick. And we can kind of then generate some insights.
Yeah, and sets at retail, right? So there's no employee gift, right? Because that's not a retail set, right? We shouldn't be looking at it that same way. So no gift with purchases, for example. So West, Lego was expensive this year, right?
It really
price to part ratios were bad.
It really felt like it.
We were about to burn down the world because of Star Wars, right? Like 19 cents per part. You look on Pick-a-Brick and that new piece that's super molded and specialized is 14 cents.
How dare they?
Do you mind reminding the listeners what you said the average price to part ratio was?
The average price to part ratio for the 2025 year was 11 cents.
And data is only as good as the amount of data you have. So we've looked at 2024, 2023, 2022 for all intents and purposes and porpoises. It's recently, it's better to look. I mean, we could look at it long term. We've done that on an episode. It's the very first episode. We'll probably refresh that episode at some point in the nearest future as we've gotten a few more years of data. But looking at the last 4 years, I think is plenty. We could go a little bit further, but it's going to tell us something very similar, if not the exact same thing. 2022 is 12. 2023 was 11. 2024 it was 11, and 2025 it was 11. So something we did last year was we also introduced median. And the
Mhm.
reason we did median is because the median is going to be more representative of the midpoint of the distribution of sets, right? So if you traditionally use an average, right, if you got 3 sets, one's 1 cent, one's 10 cents, and one's $1, your average is going to be closer to 40, right? If you looked at the median price of that set, it's going to be 10 cents, right? And the reason that's impactful is because you have 3 sets. You're trying to understand, okay, where are most of them? Most of them aren't 40, right? Most
Right,
of them
right.
are closer to 10, right? Because you got 1 cent, 10 cents, and $1, right? 2 of those sets are 10 or below, right? So
Mhm.
that's why we took median.
Yeah, the median will tell us when we compare the median to the average, it'll tell us how many outlying sets are pulling the average away from the median. Or if you see a contraction there, then you know that there's more sets kind of in that median category. So, Grinch, the fact that the average and the median haven't split at all for the last 3 years. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we've it's just more fuel to the just, and I think we're we're really gonna see it in the upcoming data. It's just more fuel of the Legos getting bigger, right? The price for the brick itself is remaining the same, but they continue to drive revenue through larger, more expensive sets, but not necessarily worse price to part ratios. Like and the reason I think we focus on price to part ratios because the focus on what makes a set good or bad is usually never the it's $300, right? It's $300 and it's 12 cents per part. That's just terrible, right? It's the price to part ratio that gets judged so harshly.
Well, and I,
So I
I, I think it's a lazy form of measurement, Grinch, and this is why I will say that, because there's two sort of fallacies with price to part. The first, I say it's lazy because it's the information that we have readily available. I know how much I
Mhm.
bought this set for. I know how many pieces are in it. Let me take a ratio of this, and that will be my indicator of value. And that's not a terrible way to go. However, the problem with that is that Lego has never, ever, 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 ever said that that is the way that they price sets, that they value sets, or that they how they release them. And that really actually doesn't square with economics at all.
Mhm.
Point in fact, this summer we saw some really expensive Star Wars sets that just felt egregiously expensive. They were
We
well
did.
over the price per part ratio. I don't think anyone's arguing about that, right? Like, I mean, we both agreed like that felt expensive for what it was.
Right.
If Lego is a company, private company who wants to make money, and they recognize that there is demand for a product, maybe even what you would call outsized demand for a product, and they increase the price of the product that they knew was in really high demand. And that's just price inflation based off of demand. Like, why is that something that we're like shocked about as a
Right.
community? That makes total sense. I don't know, man. I was sitting there thinking about that, and I'm like, of course they would do that. Like, if they know they can get $10 more out of people for some galactic marines, then they're gonna do that. Like, and we
Right.
should. That's like not Lego's fault.
No, it's not. And I was always worried too, like when they bought Bricklink, like like they're gonna get some real good and like easily accessible data on like what people are willing to spend for minifigures, and like with people are gonna spend $200 on Captain Rex, they might as well put it in a $600 set. And then, by the way, joke's on you because we'll just release it on a microfighter. But that's neither here nor there. Let's peel the onion back a little bit further. So the other thing we've looked at is piece count.
Sure.
And the same thing, average and median. And I think this is where, with the price per part ratio is such a similar number that you don't see the real effect of like looking at a median, right? But I think with the next two conversation points, we will. So when we look at piece count, West, 2022, we'll call it 700, 696, right? 2023, 580, 2024, 614, 2025, 767. So a significant increase, right? More than 5%, right? 6-8% increase from the high point of the last 4 years, which was 696. 10%, 12, 14% ish from the average of the last 4 years, right? So a real jump of piece count, right? Because think of the Death Star, right? We just talked about it. $1,000, almost 1,000 pieces. It had an 11-cent price per part ratio, right? So that's, we used to see those big sets become a bargain, right? We're not seeing that as much anymore, right? And I think that's where people are like, I don't know. But what did we see with the median too? Because I think this is honestly even more telling.
Yeah, and so the median has actually increased. So from 2022, we were looking around 370. It drops in 2023 to 300, 342 in 2024, and then spikes to 468 in 2025. So
Wow.
the median piece count jumps almost 140 plus pieces between the last year, so 2024 and 2025. And like we talked about in our earlier discussion with average price per part and median price per part, the fact now that the median has moved right by so much and the average has moved right by so much tells us a little bit of a different story, right? That in terms of pieces, the sets are getting bigger. And that is something we know and we've felt, right? But what's interesting is you go back to the pricing data for price per part, things have been really consistent. And so, Grinch, I don't mean to steal your thunder, but like this just backs up our thesis from really this entire year of like, it's not that Lego is getting more expensive. It's just Lego is selling more expensive Lego sets and they're bigger sets. The price per part ratio is still pretty decent. It's just you're spending $800 on a Lego set.
Yeah. You're just and in order to get that Lego set, it's going to be 8,000 pieces and $800.
Right. And we're seeing 4 of those released over the course of a year.
Right.
Which just hurts. Right. But
so what this means is if you were to close your eyes and go down the Lego aisle and just grab a set, it'd be close to 460, closer, if you did that multiple times, you'd get very close to 468, the most, right? We don't have to get into like standard deviations because I don't want to put anybody to sleep, but that's where the median comes into play, right? Because it's not like, unless you grab one of those bigger sets, right, you're not going to necessarily get to that 800 piece count, right? But what you will do is pretty consistently get around 500.
Yeah.
And just like tooting our own horn, thundering our own thunder here, lightning our own lightning, whatever you want to say. Make up a saying like I just did. The MSRP, right? The average MSRP has gone up by more than $10 as well, right? It was $81 in 2025. So the average priced set is $81 in Lego now. In 2024, it was 69.6. We'll call it 70. 2023, it was 70 or 67. And in 2022, 68, almost 69. So we were right below that 70 point. And now we are above 80 at 81. And West, again, median MSRP.
Yep. Pretty shacked
Was
at 40, jumps to 45 in 2024. And now in 2025, jumps another 5 points up to basically 50. So we're seeing the median slide right too. So again,
yeah, but the worst part is if you look at the median piece count of the median price, it's 10 cents. Just about. It's closer to 11, but yeah, I mean, the data's fairly consistent, right? It's humming the same tune over here. Year over year, the sets are getting bigger. The number of bigger sets are getting more frequent, but that price to part ratio is not getting worse when you holistically look at the data set, right? When you look at certain sets, sure, right? It is.
absolutely.
It absolutely is.
This is very much one of those like it depends answers that it's always the one you lob. It's your Hail Mary in grad school and in undergrad and in AP high school classes, right? Someone asks you that question of like, well, was this as significant as we think it was? And you go, well, kind of it depends, sir. And you answer your question, right? Like it depends, right? Like there's some nuance here. Is Lego getting more expensive? No, if you're just going by the value of the brick, which is apparently the metric that the Lego community is enthralled with. If you go by value of the set, like, yes, it is getting more expensive because Lego is offering bigger and bigger sets, which cost more money. And the number of big sets that are being released is increasing, which again makes it feel like things are getting more expensive. And so it is and it isn't, right? Like it's just different. Like you're just buying more. So
And I think it's a really interesting topic, right? What and we had asked in a first episode, like, okay, so if you don't use price apart, like we ultimately came back to like, I mean, maybe it is, but I think, we've been kind of noodling on, and we will certainly in the first month of the next year be doing an episode on how to measure value in Lego. And is there a better way to do it? Right. Because I think at this point, we weren't at the point now where like, if you look at the latest releases, right? Like you've talked about, like Black Pearl, right? Goonies, Enterprise, now the modular, now the Stranger Things Real House, like, and those are just the ones I'm naming off the top of my head, right? Those are just ones coming off the noggin right now. There's others, right? That are just, those are $300 sets. Like it used to be 5 $300 sets in a year. That's 5 $300 sets in 3 months. 3 months. So I think we owe it to the listeners, I think, to create the AFOLs Welcome scale and come up with a few ideas here on how to properly measure value. And I think that'll be a topic that we cover the beginning of next year.
I think the multiplier that is going to present the hardest challenge for us is going to be the demand multiplier, because I think the Lego community at large is fooling themselves if they don't think Lego at this point is surcharging sets that they know are going to be extremely popular. And they know it because people go onto Instagram and YouTube and they talk about how I've always wanted a Galactic Marine. Oh my God, this is the number one thing that I've never had. Lego's never made one before. It's the thing that, like, if they could just do that, I'd be happy as a Lego fan. And Lego goes, oh, okay, bet I'll make you a Galactic Marine.
Yeah, hold our bricks.
Like, yeah. But I'm not gonna charge you $5 a minifigure. Like that Galactic Marine's gonna cost you $7 because You've told
the
me.
501st Battle Pack is a great example, right? That was a $30 Battle Pack when it came out, right?
Yeah.
Then they did
How many
one.
people
They had
were
a couple of, like,
clamoring for it?
oh, and people bought it. A lot of them, right?
I bought 4 of
it
them.
was like, yeah. Well, so
I
West is
didn't need to.
West is the problem. West is the problem. Hey, I even bought one, and everybody knows what I think of Lego Star Wars. So, I mean, that's the data for the year, right? Like, it's kind of, I hate to say it's more of the same, because it's, at the beginning of the year, we did this episode, like, is Lego making more bigger sets, or is it, and we said yes, right? And we talked about the data as kind of a continuation on that. Like, is Lego getting more expensive? But we focused more on the sets, and it, I don't even want to say hypothesize. Like, we said, they're just releasing more bigger sets, right, at a higher price point with more pieces, right?
More bigger sets.
But the price part ratio, yeah, more bigger-ist sets. And more bigger were we corrector, more so. And
more bigger is more funner. So
more bigger, more funner, more corrector.
Yes.
We are. So let's pulse check here. Get a little pulse on some Lego themes. We talked not too long ago about the current state of Lego Star Wars. Yep. We didn't talk about it because we kind of missed it with the week off we took for Thanksgiving, but looks like some banger sets, to be honest. That AT-AT that was revealed, looking pretty good, right? There's some other things that haven't been revealed yet that we can't talk about, but there's some that has been that look pretty good. But let's talk about the other theme. So, kind of a lackluster year for City, although looking like 2026 is going to be pretty good. Formula One, I know you were excited about that. At the end of the day, how did you feel about Formula One?
I mean, I think Speed Champions has really come out on its own into sort of the granddaddy theme that it is at this point. And I mean, we just got some wonderful inclusions there. Some really realistic looking Formula One cars done across the entire Formula One paddock, which was really interesting to see. There was not only Formula One at the Speed Champion level, which, maybe underneath the Technic level is like the most realistic Formula One Lego car you're ever going to get. But then we had Formula One in just the generic City line. There was Formula One in the Duplo line. There was even the Formula One, I'm going to call it a collectible minifigure. That's not what it was, but collectible packs. I actually just got one the other day. My thought process on that, or my thoughts on them, is kind of turned around. I didn't like them at first. I don't mind them now. They're kind of fun. A lot of big molded pieces, which is kind of weird. More kind of akin to 4+ than anything else, but still a fun little build. Yeah, man. I mean, and they made trophies for the actual Formula One race. They made Lego cars that the Formula One drivers drove out at the last Las Vegas Grand Prix. They had Cadillac created a giant pink Lego Cadillac car that took, I think it was Max Verstappen. Terry Crews was driving it and drove him either to the race, or it was post-race, or some presser, or whatever the case may be. I think he even had Lego glasses on. I mean, Formula One this year, I'm sure the Lego team is really happy about how the year went, because I just feel like you could not turn a corner without seeing Lego in Formula One. They're now sponsoring the Formula One Academy, a Formula One Academy car, and they're also selling it as a set. So there's like a dual crossover there for 2026. That's really exciting. We have some interesting news that Audi and Cadillac will both have cars next year. There was the Formula One movie, and they're releasing the Formula One movie car. Like, dude, I don't know. This was a Formula One year. So,
yeah, I mean, whoever is in charge of like Formula One's PR, like, when's Formula 2 coming? No, yeah, it was a big year for Formula One, and for Lego specifically. But what about like Marvel?
Yeah, this is, I think, a bit of a sleeper year,
Spider-Man,
actually.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we got some really cool stuff, starting with the Marvel that kind of corner bodega set that they came out with earlier in the year, which I can't believe
Mm-hmm.
was this last year. It's gone by so quick, but it feels like forever ago. Uh, you know, Marvel felt like they were kind of in doldrums for the last 2 or 3 years with just these, returning to like the Avenger final battle sequence. This is the fourth version of the Avengers headquarters, where Thanos gets vanquished. And you're like, okay, what else can you give us? And they're like, well, cool, we can do it again. We're going to give you less and we're going to make it more expensive. And it's like, great,
Right.
guys. But yeah, this year, just a return to kind of form with a lot of the Spider-Man sets have really been crushing it. We talked about kind of the Marvel releases that were announced just a few weeks ago that I believe those are January 2021 or January 1st set releases, but I really feel like Marvel's picking up some steam again as they sort of return to their roots a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like if you weren't excited about Marvel sets this year, it was maybe because you weren't excited about the MCU in general, right?
Yeah.
Like, people have been down on MCU, but I think, this was just a solid year. Like that Quinjet 2 was really good. Even I actually really like the Oscorp Tower. I know you were so on it, but um, yeah, I think it was overall just like you said, just kind of solid, kind of par from the course what we've seen here. Last few years. No modular building though, right? No Marvel modular building. Right? We got the
Which,
Batman Arkham
yeah.
Asylum modular, and I think it's worth noting that Lego considers, or they catalog, Marvel and DC as Lego superheroes, and then
Mhm.
Marvel's a sub theme and DC's a sub theme of Lego superheroes. If I were Marvel, I would be like, and they probably don't actually care that much because they've got like more important things to do, like make movies, but I'd be like, no, get me out of that. Like, I want to be Lego Marvel. Like,
Yeah.
it's not Lego
Yeah.
superheroes. And like, you did that like in 2012 when it was novel, like, and new, like, we're Lego Marvel. Um, and it would also make my life easier personally as a collector because then I could go through by Bricklink and superhero wouldn't be a thing, because right now like superhero minifigure number one's a Batman and superhero minifigure number seven's an Iron Man. So you know um that would certainly make my life easier, but I think Marvel should care about it. No, but can I maybe give a hot take?
Yeah.
Icons.
Hmm.
Icons is starting to
Where are
piss
you
me
going with
off.
this? Where are you going with this, Grinch?
This
Okay.
might be like
Okay.
a boiling hot take in a wooden pitcher that's about to like shatter in half, because it can't handle the heat. I don't know.
Grinch, why do you feel like that?
Um, because this episode right now, what we're talking about, like icons, feels like just Lego's excuse to just make whatever big set they want to make. Like, I don't know, an aquarium, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, let's. And I love the Black Pearl, but like, let's just revive an old theme and just bring back a giant $400 set for it, and never like give me a proper wave of pirate. Like, it's this excuse to just do these one-offs. Like, give me a proper wave of Pirates of the Caribbean. Give
Oh,
me
you mean like
a
Lord of the Rings,
proper
where
wave of Lord of the Rings, like give me a proper wave. But no, it's gonna be thrown under icons, and I need to keep my voice down because my daughter's sleeping and I'm getting angry. Remember how
no,
we
dude,
use data to not be reactionary?
yeah,
Sorry, folks. Sorry.
and we
I'll put
still
my
got
glasses
reactionary
and my
anyways.
reading voice back on.
No, dude, I completely agree with you. And that's what's really frustrating about seeing things like the Lord of the Rings wave. And I've mentioned it on the show before, right? But take this latest Shire set where we have Gandalf and Frodo. That could be its own little set. The Bilbo birthday party could have been its own set, right? And then you could have just sold the house, the Bag End house, and that could have been its own set. And I think it's unfortunate because it's creating this barrier to entry for something like Lord of the Rings, which it's not like you can go get used or new sets, old ones for cheap. And so, I'm either forced to buy expensive old sets, or I'm forced to spend $200 to $300, if not more, on the new stuff, but I don't really get anything in between. And that's just really frustrating. And it's a shame because it's a really cool theme that I think Lego could do really well with at this point if they were to give it the full wave treatment, but they're not. And I just think that's a shame.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, to be very gentle, love the sets. Like I said, love the Black Pearl.
Yes.
Like, this is definitely better than not getting those sets, right? Like, I would much rather this than not get Lord of the Rings, period.
I would much rather
Right.
jealously look at Rivendell at the Lego store than to not have
Or
it
my
at all.
house.
Yes.
And me show you all the fun facts. But yeah, no, I mean, but it does, and the icons theme is getting a little like, it's too catch-all at this point, right? It's too much of everything, right? It's the
It can
Eiffel
be
Tower to the
Gardens of the
Colosseum
World, cars,
to Gardens of the World to
airplanes
to
now.
whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, to Bardadur, right? It's your ticket to everything.
I mean, on one hand, though, it makes sense as to what they're doing, right? Where they're like, I need a dumping ground for some one-off stuff that I want to do. And, that one-off thing is relatively iconic. Where could we put it? Oh, we'll create a line called Lego Icons and we'll just put everything in there. I get it, right? But I think what you're also talking about indirectly is that reflection on price fatigue of just so many big sets. And I would argue that I feel like Ideas is the same way these days. We get the Twilight House, we get the Italian Riviera, we get the Goonies set.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Ideas used to be a good value. They used to be 100 to, maybe $150 sets. Now it's just insane. And they're awesome. It's kind of like Icons where it's like, I know we're never going to get an Italian Riviera set again, Botanical Gardens set again. But I can't spend $600 on Lego for that. Like, I just can't, as much as I love those buildings. Like, I just can't do that. And like, it's just,
Yeah, and I mean, maybe I'm also trying to say, like, sorry for being a boomer because, like, I miss Creator Expert, where, like, that was not licensed. Like, Creator Expert was just Creator Expert, right? It was these cool models, and then you had, like, the Stranger Things Upside Down house. Like, that was just Stranger Things. Like, it wasn't this, they were, yeah, I don't know. I may have been a little overreactionary, but it's just kind of something that I've really felt like, oh, like when you start to see leaks and stuff, right? It's like, oh, this icon set will be $499, and this, I'm like, stop it, no, we're not. Where's my Fairground set?
Okay, Grinch, I got a hot take for you.
Oh my god! Ow! I burned myself.
Hot take prediction about 2026.
Let's talk about 2026.
And before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about 2025 here in the United States and elsewhere.
This is the water boiling, by the way.
2025 has been kind of an interesting roller coaster of a year between tariffs, between de minimis getting taken away, which we haven't really talked about too much. There's been kind of a lot of things going on here in the United States on the economic home front that has been a bit mildly controversial, maybe is a fair way to describe that. And we are seeing reflections of that in the economy. And holiday hiring is down. I think I heard on NPR that like Target didn't hire a ton of extra people for the holidays like they normally do to, man cash registers and stuff like that. You combine that outlook with this price fatigue we felt with Lego. They had a really great year at the beginning of the year, like you mentioned earlier. I think 2026 is going to be kind of an even or flat year for Lego. We know it
You think it
takes them
finally
2 to 3
catches up?
years to program stuff. Maybe they were smart and they're like, we're going to program some incremental increases, but kind of level it off after we reach a certain point. So maybe it kind of just sort of haphazardly lines up, but I don't think it will. And I think 2026 is the year where like people kind of go like, enough is enough. Like, I just don't want to buy $400 or $500 sets this year. And I kind of think this is going to be an interesting year for Lego. We are already kind of seeing it. I mean, Black Friday this year, there was a lot of sets on sale. They don't normally do that.
They don't typically do that, yeah.
4 times VIP points. They don't normally do that. And so there were some interesting things there where...
And when they have, it was the Black Panther bust, the UCS Hogwarts Express.
Yeah.
Like
sets we kind of know were kind of vilified for what they presented to the community as what I think we would largely call misses. And so, and I didn't think the ones that they showed this year on the four times VIPs were like misses by any means. I just think,
they were just random $400 icon sets.
Yeah, when you have a choice, right? You got $500 to spend on Lego for the year. Like, you can buy 1 set or you can buy 4. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
So
I will say, I think I agree and disagree. And this is where I wish we had better sales data from Lego, because I think, well, the year might have started hot for Lego. It might not end hot for Lego.
I don't think it's going to end hot for anybody, but that's another.
But right. But this is AFOLs Welcome, where we talk about all things Lego and the global economy, current state.
Right.
No, but I don't think it's going to end hot. But I do think 2026 will mimic that, because I think what you'll see is a little bit, it's like a reverse cyclical pattern, right? Where, and when you talk about like learning, right? Like you learn in like a cycle, like where you get good at something and then you start to realize that you're not good at it and you're bad at it, but that's actually you getting better at it. So then on the other end, you're
so
coming
like
back up and you're better, right?
Where if like
it's going to be the opposite, right?
good,
where the year starts good, people get fatigued, and the spending slows down, and all of a sudden, like, well, actually, I haven't bought Lego in a while, and they just came out with Lego Pokemon in March, and this is so exciting! I'm gonna go buy every single Pokemon set, and then Lego had record sales, mostly due to Pokemon and a strong core of random franchises, and then people are gonna be like, okay, I just spent $2,000 on Lego Pokemon sets. I'm not gonna buy anything else for the rest of the year, and you're gonna start to see, people are going to trickle off, right? And I think, but eventually your dips are going to get lower. So I think my prediction for 2026 is going to be that we're going to see more sets on sale at Black Friday, more recent sets on sale at Black Friday. I don't think this is going away next year. If anything, I think they'll be, oh, it's so successful, we're going to do it again, because leading up to it, people weren't buying Lego, right? And I think I think it'll be a magnified version of what we saw this year.
Can I also add, you brought up something really interesting with Star Trek, of how it brought people from outside of the community in. And I think that's going to continue. Every person who's an AFOL, I think, is excited to see what Lego Pokemon turns into. But the number of people outside of Lego that this pulls in, I think, will be significant. And so I think as long as Lego is hedging their bets by still kind of playing on the peripheries here with some big ways and pulling people in who have never been in the community before, I think we'll continue to see it could offset some of the losses from like the traditional AFOLs that could come at the expense of the traditional AFOLs. You know what I mean? When we interviewed another Jones last week, she mentioned botanicals was one of the things that brought her into Lego for the first time, and we've seen that from a lot of our more senior listeners and viewers have mentioned that like, yeah, I was in this, Barnes and Nobles, and I saw a botanical set, and I said, what is this? Like, I thought Lego was for kids, and it's all of us AFOLs are kind of like, yeah, welcome to the show, but like, those are the things that are bringing in people for the first time. And so if we get more of that, then I mean, it stinks, right? Because like that means Lego's pandering to not us, but that might help offset some of that price fatigue from Lego's perspective.
Or you get more people that are buying one-off sets and therefore are willing to spend more on it because they're not buying a continuous amounts of sets from Lego. So if they look at it, they're like, actually, I'm okay spending $600 on a 500,
right.
Yeah.
Because I've never bought a Lego set before, but I'm a huge Trekkie fan. Right. So like,
this
I need
is
to buy
the one
Enterprise
set I want to buy.
Right. And Lego just goes, oh, we sold a lot of Enterprises. Like, must be good.
Can I offer a thought question that I don't necessarily agree with myself? It's just one we haven't stated yet.
Sure.
What if Pokemon fails? What if the sets aren't good? Because it's also important to remember that if you're a non-Lego fan that comes to Lego to get Pokemon, it's already existed with Mega Bloks. And as much as I am a Lego purist, Mega Bloks did a pretty darn good job with some of those sets. I mean, those were solid, right? Like, they caught my eye every once in a while. So there is something to compare it to. And if your non-Lego fan looks at it and says, I never bought the Mega Blok and this is worse, you don't have that. I mean, you have brand power because you're Lego, right? But people will already know who you like. Those people who are sitting on the sideline are not purist, right?
Yeah.
They're going to go buy whatever they want, whatever brand, because they want it. So that's, I think, the interesting dynamic that is hard, you can't really measure, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's really fair. And I think that's an interesting question of what if this doesn't go well. It's one that Lego should hopefully be thinking about at a minimum if they're doing their due diligence. I mean, I could also just see if, again, right, coming off the holidays and Black Friday, they just sold a lot of Lego to a lot of people, and then they go and drop whatever it is that they're going to drop in this wave. If it ends up being a more adult focused wave, there might not be an appetite in March to go buy Lego. I mean, who knows what the next few months are going to look like. So
certainly, I think you're seeing some of that with the modular, like people's reactions, like, really, I'm going to nitpick this. Whereas like you might not have normally, right? Because it's like, I just spent all this money, and now I got to go spend another $250, but like, for this, right? So where you may have got some of that forgiveness earlier, but Wes, I think that wraps it up. I think we'll leave our listeners with that question going into the new year.
Yeah.
Why don't we head over to some brick mail? Brick mail.
Well, Grinch, we have a few of them today, so we'll start and get through them. But the first couple are some comments we had on Spotify from some listeners we haven't featured before. So our first listener, Logan, writes in, brand new to this podcast, and wow, it's got to be the best Lego podcast of them all. Figured I'd throw something out here to talk about minifigure accessories. I don't see them talked about enough, especially considering you have a lot of interesting building techniques involving some. My personal favorite as a musician being the guitars and instrumental pieces. But I'm seriously loving this as I have 8 hours to kill stocking Walmart shelves, and you guys keep my mind thinking. Much love from Ohio. Well, thank you, Logan, for writing in. I also love the Lego minifigure instrument pieces. And I think that's a wonderful idea for a future episode for us. I don't know, Grinch, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think minifigure accessories is really interesting, and we kind of talked about the life preserver today. But yeah, we definitely that's a good. We'll add that to our list because um, I personally like accessories where you can use them as like nice. I don't like the super specialized stuff, right? But it's
You like the life
definitely
preservers that also double as toilet seats
exactly.
or Christmas wreaths.
Yes, toilet seat life preserving Christmas wreaths. Garrett writes in and says, "Is Lego limited to making Star Wars sets only from movies/shows? This might be a stretch, but I'd love them to design sets from video games or book series. The High Republic books just wrapped up, and that would be a great way to make sets outside the Skywalker saga. And they could use cover or concept arts to make sets or encourage anyone to build what they see when they read. I feel like there's a lot more Star Wars Lego could explore to keep it interesting and fresh." I would have you know that
Well,
Lego
Garrett.
did do some Battlefront sets. So
Mhm.
there's that. And they did um they've done like some original takes like Rebuild the Galaxy, the Yoda Chronicles. They did one with Star Killer, right? From
I forget the name of
what
that
was
video
that? The
game
Force
franchise.
Unleashed, right? They did
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
And I think they did some High Republic sets, or no, you said High Republic here. They did some Old Republic sets. They
They
have
did.
done.
Yep.
It seems
They
like
did.
a.
They did Knights of the Old Republic, basically.
That's what it was. Yeah. They have done that. It seems like a older.
Yeah.
They kind of like the glory, like 2013, right, of Star Wars, 2014, 2012. Which I would say is a golden era of Star Wars, Lego specifically. They did that. They did that a lot before the Disney acquisition and before all that stuff became non-canon, that sort of thing. And then more recently, they did Rebuild the Galaxy, your Battlefront stuff, and kind of more recent memories. But exactly, I think it's a great point, right? It's just a Star Wars issue that's plated Star Wars for the past years, with Disney. I think it was Kathleen Kennedy famously saying, like, if only we had some source material to base this off of. Like, you do.
Oh, between that and the Icons line, Grinch, you're going to drive me up a wall tonight. So,
Well, why don't I drive you to our next brick mail?
so our next comment comes from Andrew G, who writes in, "I recently listened to your episode with Mr. Bookie Boo about city building, and I loved it. I did want to comment on the value of secondhand stores for acquiring Duplo. I currently have a medium-sized tote of Duplo that cost me about $50 across 3 purchases. I largely ignore anything that isn't a 2x4 brick, but the random selection is nice for smaller children that come to visit. Thanks for the great podcast. I'm really enjoying it." He was writing in because we talked about Mr. Bookie Boo has got some really cool mountains that he's built in the back of his town. And a common technique is you can take a Lego system 2x4, for example, and actually stick it on a Lego Duplo 2x4 perpendicular. And you can take Duplo pieces and then turn them into like system pieces. And so you can use Duplo to like build up the inside of a mountain, for example, keeping it hollow, and then build up, system. And it's a really great way to kind of build a shell without including all of the system pieces inside. So you're hollowing it out effectively. But Mr. Bookie Boo reminded us that Duplo is actually pretty expensive. And so Andrew was just sharing how he found some. So thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, and there's actually a YouTuber I like. He's not super well known, named Hypolite Bricks. He just does mock stuff that I've really enjoyed. And one of the things he said is he actually has Duplo next to his building area. So when he's got nieces and nephews over, he's like, no, I'm building here. You build here. It's got a drawer of Duplo for that. But I do like the call out of looking for Duplo at secondhand stores for sure, because I think that's a really good. The only challenge, the biggest challenge with that is obviously like cost gas to get there, and they may not have it, right? If you think about like Goodwill or something like that, right? They just may not even have anything. So,
Yeah.
do it responsibly, right? It's like going to garage sales. Like you find people that, I found a green grocer at a garage sale, but it's you had to go at 6 a.m. and you went to 6 garage sales that day. So, but just something to keep in mind more so than like not to do it, right? So up next we have Lego Loving Lady. I so connected with this episode. I believe she was referencing the most recent episode that we did with another Jones. As a 53-year-old woman, I lost my mom to pancreatic cancer February 2023. I am so sorry. That must have been very difficult, and my condolences for your loss. The battle was fast and brutal. We couldn't really fight due to her other health conditions, so we were 5 months from diagnosis to her being gone. This left me with a lot to work through. I had never played with Lego as a child, but had a dear friend who is an AFOL share their collection. It caught my interest, and it had been 6 months of nowhere to focus this energy to not dwell on losing my mom. We talked, and he suggested the bonsai tree as a first set. I'd always wanted one, but had the opposite of a green thumb, so I got the set to build it, and I loved it. Ordered another and discovered a community of the nicest people. It's like no age variation with the Lego love of Lego, no division. I spent an hour talking to strangers in Walmart, helped grandparents at Target find sets for their grandkids, Christmas, better deals online, etc. Lego helped me re-engage with others after shutting down, gave me something to distract myself with, awesome displays, then a way to interact with awesome people. Was definitely therapy for me. Long-time listener and always enjoyed your podcast today, though it hit my heart. Well, Lego Loving Lady, I appreciate you
Thank you.
taking the time to share your story, offer feedback, and be vulnerable, and share what the Lego community means to you. And I think that's what ultimately makes this community so special. There's never really a lot of judgment. We're kind of all here for the love of the brick and for different reasons, but at the end of the day, we can all share the joy and passion that that building brings. So terribly sorry about your mother. I can't even imagine what you must have gone through during that experience, but we are certainly glad that you found this community as a way to cope with it. So
Absolutely. And our last comment today comes from Phil S. UK. I think he's from Great Britain. And he writes, fantastic topic. I've found Lego building hugely beneficial to my well-being. Sometimes it's through my own creations from my modest parts collection. Sometimes it's through building sets. Building with Lego occupies my hands and my mind, and as someone who is not a particularly capable artist, it offers me the ability to create in ways never before possible. It also allows me to bond with my children through building and play. I've only just started listening, but I'm very much looking forward to listening. Well, thank you, Phil. We appreciate it.
yes, thank you, Phil. And it's funny you say that, because like I feel like I'm a terrible artist myself, but I feel like I'm a above average capable builder. Yeah, I can hold my own in a fight. Yeah, but I cannot like draw or paint. I can color in the lines. Like I got that down pretty good. But when it comes to actually like producing art, bad. So but it does offer you a creative outlet. Like I'm good at making slides on a slide deck at work, and I'm good at building Lego, and that's okay, right? So glad you've been listening. Glad you found a way to connect with your kids, and look forward for you going down the AFOLs Welcome rabbit hole and journey. And that is a wrap of another episode of AFOLs Welcome. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you are listening to this show. If you would like to write the podcast, please email us at afolswelcome@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at afolswelcome. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.
See ya.